If you're learning English, or really, if you've ever tried to get good at any second language, you probably know this feeling. It's quite specific, almost painful sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
You can follow a movie, right? Maybe even without subtitles. You read articles, understand dense conversations. Your comprehension feels solid.
You feel like you've got it. Intellectual. Yeah.
But then the moment comes, you need to actually say something. You open your mouth and just wham! A wall.
Silence.
Your mind goes blank. That perfect sentence you were formulating, it just evaporates before you can get it out. It's incredibly frustrating.
It really is. And look, if that sounds familiar, you are absolutely not alone. It's probably the single most common hurdle for serious language learners.
We hear it all the time.
We do. Some people call it the passive knowledge trap. It's that gap, that disconnect between what you can understand, what you can comprehend, and what you can actually produce actively, fluently, when you need it.
And that gap is exactly what we're tackling today. We're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating source material, specifically a detailed YouTube analysis. And what's great about this source is it doesn't just diagnose the problem, which many do. It actually gives a very practical step-by-step framework, 4 steps designed to basically eliminate that gap.
Yeah, it's focused on making that shift from passive understanding to active speaking skill.
And we should be clear, we're not just talking about, doing more grammar exercises or downloading another vocabulary app.
No, this goes deeper.
We're going right to the core of why that block happens, kind of the neurological reason almost. Why does your brain just seize up when you're put on the spot in a real conversation?
And the source material offers a really compelling explanation for this. It pinpoints the root cause as, well, a fundamental mismatch, a misalignment between the task and the timing.
Okay, unpack that. Task versus timing.
Think about writing. When you sit down to write an email, an essay, whatever, you have time.
Right.
It's a luxury.
Total luxury. You can stare out the window, make coffee.
Exactly. You can search your mental dictionary for the perfect word. You can double-check grammar rules. Should this be present simple? Maybe past perfect would be better here. You are consciously applying slow, analytical, technical rules.
You're operating in what feels like a completely safe zone. 0 time pressure.
Precisely. But speaking, that luxury just vanishes. Poof, you have milliseconds, literally. The other person is right there waiting for a response.
The social pressure kicks in.
It does. And your brain, which has likely been trained mostly through reading, writing, maybe traditional classroom exercises, it tries to apply those same slow, careful writing rules, that detailed analytical process, to the instantaneous demands of speech.
And it just can't compute fast enough.
It crashes. The whole system jams up. It's like trying to run complex software on an old, slow processor. The source basically calls it analysis paralysis, but taken to a linguistic extreme.
Right. That pause, that hesitation, that's the sound of your brain frantically trying to run a full diagnostic check on grammar and vocabulary while the conversational train is leaving the station.
You nailed it.
You did.
And the source uses a perfect, very relatable example to show this in action. It's about talking about a simple hobby.
Okay.
Let's say tennis. Someone asks as a native English speaker, so what do you do for fun? If they play tennis, the answer is usually instant, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I play tennis.
Simple. Subject, verb, object, present, simple, done.
Done. But the advanced learner, the one stuck in that passive knowledge trap, their brain starts doing this complex calculation.
Here we go. The overthinking engine starts up.
Exactly. They think, okay, wait, I started playing tennis 6 years ago, and I still play now. So there's duration, there's continuation. Technically, the best tense here would be the present perfect continuous.
Oh boy, I can see where this is going.
Right. And that thought immediately triggers the internal grammar search.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I build that? Right. Subject plus have or has plus been plus the verb ending in ing. Oh, and then the time marker, is it for or since?
Yeah.
6 years? Okay, that's a duration, so it's 4.
And meanwhile, the person who asked the question is checking their watch.
Pretty much. They're getting bogged down in the mechanics of the perfect sentence. By the time they maybe manage to stammer out, I've been playing tennis for... The moment's passed. The conversation moved on, or worse, they just give up and stay silent, feeling frustrated because they know the complex grammar, but they couldn't actually use it smoothly.
They expended all that mental energy trying to select the absolute perfect grammatical structure.
And ended up achieving 0 communication, or, very awkward communication.
The knowledge is there, but it's locked behind this slow, deliberate grammar key that just doesn't work in real-time speech.
That's the core problem.
So, Our mission today, taking cues directly from this source, is to figure out how to unlock that knowledge. How do we make it automatic? We're going to walk you through this specific 4-step method that's designed precisely to bypass that on-the-spot, high-pressure construction and make your spoken English flow more naturally.
Yeah, think of it like this. We need to move the heavy lifting, all that detailed grammar checking and sentence building out of the live conversation where the pressure is high and into a dedicated low-pressure preparation zone.
Okay, that makes sense. Shifting the workload. So if that's the diagnosis, the cognitive architecture issue, what's the first step in the solution? The framework has to start somewhere.
It starts with structure.
Yeah.
And this brings us straight into step 1, the topical revolution. Right, step 1, this is about fundamentally changing how you organize the English you're learning. The source argues that a big structural issue for most learners is that they pick up vocabulary. Well, randomly.
Haphazardly, yeah. You read an article about, say, climate change, learn a few words there, then you watch a sitcom, pick up some slang about dating.
Exactly. Maybe listen to a podcast about economics, learn 5 terms there, and these pieces of language float around in your mind, but they're isolated, disconnected bits of data.
Which means when you're under pressure in a conversation, trying to find the right word or phrase, your brain has to sift through this giant, unsorted mental database. It's inefficient.
Massively inefficient.
Yeah.
So the first big shift is stop learning randomly. Start learning everything by topic. You need an organized filing system for your brain.
Like a mental library with clear sections.
Precisely. And the source recommends a very practical tool for this. A dedicated notebook, which it calls the speaking notebook.
Yeah.
This isn't just any notebook. It's the central hub for organizing your language for speaking.
So more than just a list of words and definitions like we might have kept in school.
Much more. This notebook isn't for passively recording lecture notes. It's a living repository of usable, active language, structured the way conversations actually happen. You physically dedicate sections to common conversational subjects.
Okay, like what kind of subjects are we talking about?
The core stuff that comes up again and again, things like friendship, family and relationships, health and wellness, work and career, education, hobbies and interests, travel, food, the environment, technology. You get the idea.
The kind of things you actually talk about with people day to day.
Exactly. The immediate benefit is relevance. If you're suddenly in a conversation about your weekend trip, your mind doesn't have to scan all the adjectives you know. It can go straight to the travel or hobbies section of your mental notebook. Retrieval becomes much faster and more targeted.
I like that. It immediately connects the language to a real-world context. You're not just learning accommodation, you're learning it within the travel section.
Right. And the source emphasizes what it calls the organic growth strategy for this notebook. This is key. You don't need to sit down on day 1 and try to predict every possible topic you might ever discuss for the rest of your life.
That would be overwhelming.
Totally. Instead, it grows naturally. As you study, as you listen to things, as you have conversations, you'll inevitably encounter new subjects. Have you read an interesting article about artificial intelligence?
Okay.
The moment you learn some useful language related to AI, maybe a specific term, a common phrase, a useful verb, you just create a new section for technology or AI in your notebook and log it there.
So the notebook expands alongside your actual exposure to English and your conversational needs.
Exactly. It stays relevant to you. If you never talk about, 18th century pottery, you don't need a section for it.
Yeah.
But if you suddenly take up scuba diving, boom, new scuba diving or ocean life section.
It provides clarity, too. You encounter a useful phrase like supply chain disruption. You know instantly, okay, that goes in my business or economic section. Now it has a home, a context for future use.
And that context is crucial because, as you said, context aids memory and retrieval significantly. It connects the language not just to a dry definition, but to a scenario, a situation where you might actually use it.
Okay, so step 1 is laying the foundation. A highly organized, topic-based system, the speaking notebook. This is the prerequisite, you said.
It's the non-negotiable prerequisite for step 2.
Right.
Because step 2 is where we actually start filling those topic sections with the specific kind of language that helps us bypass that grammar check freeze we talked about earlier.
Right. We've got the filing cabinet. Now, how do we fill it with files that are actually useful when we need to speak, not just read? This sounds like the core strategy.
It is. This leads us directly to step 2, the power of prefabricated sentences.
Okay, step 2, prefabricated sentences. This sounds intriguing. It connects back to that idea of shifting the workload, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Step 2 executes the source's core principle here. Right before you speak, Remember how we said the problem was applying slow analytical writing rules during fast-paced speaking?
Yeah, the system crashed.
Well, step 2 says, let's embrace that slow analytical brain power, but use it strategically. Use it during your dedicated study time, your low-pressure writing time. That's when you do the heavy lifting.
Front-loading the cognitive effort.
Perfectly put. So the action is, you go to your speaking notebook. You open a specific topic section. Let's stick with friendship for a clear example. And now you consciously, deliberately start writing down complete sentences using various relevant words.
Not just listing words, but building actual sentences.
Full sentences. You use different adjectives, related to friendship, different nouns, useful phrases, common verbs. And because you're writing, you have the time. You have that luxury to think carefully about the structure, the tense choice, the vocabulary. Is this adjective the right one? Does this verb sound natural here?
You're doing the analysis paralysis part, but on your own terms, without the pressure.
Exactly. You're applying the grammar rules correctly when the clock is not ticking. But, and this is a crucial point the source addresses, many learners get stuck here. They think, okay, I can write, I have friends, or my friend is nice, but they struggle to move beyond those very basic structures. How do you build more complex, more natural-sounding sentences efficiently?
Right. How do you level up from basic statements to something richer?
This is where the source material gets very specific and introduces a really practical online tool. It's called AZDEC.com. AZDEK.CAT.
AZDEC. Okay, I haven't heard of that one. What does it do differently? It's not just a dictionary.
No, it's much more powerful for this specific purpose. Think of it less as a definition dictionary and more as a collocation and usage pattern generator. It's designed to show you how words are actually used together by native speakers. And the source highlights this as key for engineering these more complex prefabricated sentences.
Okay, so let's make this concrete. If my goal is to talk about friendship beyond just I have friends, how would I use AZDEC? Walk us through it.
All right, so you go to AZDEC.com and you type in your keyword, in this case, friend. What it gives you back isn't just a definition. It systematically breaks down how friend is used in combination with other types of words. It shows you common pairings, adjectives, verbs, nouns, and crucially, phrases.
So it reveals the patterns.
Exactly. It shows you the high-frequency collocations. These are the words that just naturally sound right together for native speakers. They don't consciously think, which adjective fits best with friend? They instinctively reach for common pairings. AZDEC helps learners see those pairings explicitly.
Okay, give us some examples from the source. What kind of pairings would AZDEC show for friend that help build better sentences?
Let's start with adjectives. Instead of just nice or good, a search on AZDEC might reveal a list like best friend, close friend, great friend, intimate friend, lifelong friend, mutual friend, true friend.
Ah, okay. So immediately you see options that add more nuance.
Right. So in your speaking notebook under friendship, instead of just writing, I have good friends, you use the tool to generate and write down sentences like, I have a couple of close friends from university, or maybe she's my best friend. We tell each other everything. Or, talking about someone you both know, yes, John and I have several mutual friends. You've instantly upgraded the sophistication.
And the key isn't just knowing the definition of close or mutual. It's seeing directly that these words are frequently and naturally paired with friend in real English.
That's the crucial insight. It's about usage patterns, not just definitions. Then you can look at verbs. The source pointed out verbs beyond the basic have or be. AZDEC might show you things like become friends. e.g., we became friends almost instantly. Remain or stay friends, e.g., it's amazing we've stayed friends for so long. Find friends, make friends, even win friends, though win often relates more to gaining trust or affection leading to friendship.
Okay, so seeing those verbs prompts you to write sentences incorporating different actions and maybe different tenses related to friendship, like it can be hard to make new friends when you move to a new city.
Precisely. You're actively building sentences that capture more dynamic aspects of friendship. But the real power, according to the source, often comes from the phrases. This is where you leap from single words or simple pairs to these ready-made chunks of language that sound incredibly natural.
Idiomatic chunks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
AZDEC is great at highlighting these. For a friend, it might show phrases like a circle of friends, a close-knit group of friends, or the pattern, a friend of mine, your sister's theirs.
Ah, a friend of mine. That's a classic one learners sometimes struggle with the structure of.
Right. Instead of maybe awkwardly saying, well, my friend gave me this, AZDEC shows you the natural pattern. So you practice writing, oh, this necklace. A good friend of mine gave it to me for my birthday. You pre-build that correct structure.
Or the circle of friends example, instead of maybe, he introduced me to many people he knows who are friends, which is clumsy.
You see the phrase and you write, he has a very wide circle of friends. Or, she introduced me to her inner circle of friends.
Yeah.
It's smoother, more idiomatic, more native-like.
And that phrase, a circle of friends or a friend of mine, it functions like a single unit in your brain, doesn't it?
That's the goal. It becomes a pre-assembled chunk. It saves your brain the processing power of trying to figure out possessive pronouns or prepositions on the fly during a conversation. You did the assembly work beforehand during your writing practice.
Okay, this distinction feels really important. We're not just making vocabulary lists. We're actively constructing these structural units of meaning. Let's try to synthesize this.
Yeah.
Walk us through building a more complex sentence using these pieces.
Okay, let's say the basic idea you want to express is, I don't have a huge number of friends, but the ones I have are important. Pretty common sentiment.
Sure.
So you go to your friendship section in your notebook. You think, okay, I don't have many friends. Sounds a bit blunt, maybe a little negative.
Yeah.
You consult ASDEC or your notes from it. You see the phrase circle of friends. You think, I can use that to express quantity more elegantly.
Yeah.
So you draft, I have a small circle of friends.
That are already more nuanced.
Then you look at the adjectives. You see close, intimate, loyal. You want to convey the quality of these friendships. So you refine it further. I have a small circle of close friends. Maybe even add more. I have a small circle of very close friends.
Okay, wow. So you went from a simple negative statement to a much more positive, descriptive, and natural sounding sentence. I have a small circle of very close friends.
Exactly. And you consciously built that sentence during your quiet study time. You considered the options, you selected the best fit, you checked the structure, you prefabricated it.
But hang on, a potential concern pops up here. If I do this systematically, write down, say, 20 sophisticated sentences for friendship, 30 for work, 15 for health, am I just creating scripts? When I actually speak, won't I sound robotic, like I'm just reciting lines I memorized?
That's a really critical question, and the source addresses this directly. It touches on a common misunderstanding of what fluency really means. The goal here is not rote memorization for verbatim recitation. The goal is to build procedural memory for the language patterns. Think about learning to type. At first, you consciously hunt for each key. But with practice, your fingers just know where to go. You're not reciting the keyboard layout. The movement has become automatic.
Okay. Muscle memory, but for language structure.
Exactly. When you consistently build and mentally rehearse these prefabricated sentences, a small circle of close friends, a friend of mine, we stayed friends despite the distance. You're training your brain to recall the patterns and the collocations instantly and automatically.
So in a conversation, I'm not necessarily going to say exactly, I have a small circle of close friends every single time.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But when the topic of friendship comes up and you want to express that idea, your brain doesn't have to start from scratch building subject, verb, object, and searching for adjectives. It effortlessly pulls up the pattern. Something like, I have a size descriptor circle of quality adjective friends, and you can then slot in slightly different words if needed, or use the pattern as a launch pad for your next thought.
So the prefabricated sentences are like training wheels for the grammatical and lexical structure. They make the delivery of those correct forms automatic, freeing up your conscious brain power.
That's it. You free up cognitive resources. Instead of sweating the grammar and word choice, your brain can focus on the actual message you want to convey, the nuances of the conversation, listening to the other person, expressing your personality. You remove the linguistic bottleneck.
Which allows your natural conversational rhythm and flow to actually emerge.
Precisely. This conscious, deliberate process of writing complex, ready-to-use sentences, filed by topic, that is the core of step 2, you're creating an inventory of high-quality, trained responses.
Your personal arsenal of conversational structures ready to deploy. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's building the shortcuts for conversational speed. That covers the creation phase. Now, what about keeping the system alive and growing?
Right. That brings us logically to step 3, active vocabulary integration. This is about maintenance and expansion.
Okay, step 3, active integration. So step 2 was about creating that initial inventory of prefabricated sentences in our topical notebook. Step 3 sounds like it's about keeping that inventory up to date and growing.
Exactly right. If step 2 is the initial construction project, step 3 is the ongoing maintenance and renovation. It's the continuous learning loop. Its purpose is to ensure that basically every useful new piece of language you encounter gets immediately captured and transformed.
Transform from what to what?
From passive understanding into an active speaking asset.
Ah, bridging that gap again, because normally what happens? You read an article, see a great word or phrase, maybe even look it up.
You nod, think, oh, that's useful, and then
2 minutes later, it's gone. Or at least you can't recall it when you need to speak.
precisely. It gets filed away in that vast, passive mental library, words you recognize when you see or hear them, but that you simply can't access under the pressure of spontaneous speech. Step 3 is the discipline to prevent that.
So what's the discipline? What's the action here?
The source insists. Every single time you encounter a new word, a useful phrase, a good adjective, a relevant idiom, anything you think, I could actually use that, you must actively log it into the correct section of your speaking notebook.
Immediately. Or at the end of the day.
Ideally, as soon as it's practical. Don't let it just float away. Capture it. Let's make it concrete. Say you're watching a documentary about environmental issues.
Okay.
And you hear the narrator use the phrase irreversible damage to describe the impact of deforestation. You recognize that's a powerful, useful phrase.
Definitely more sophisticated than just really bad damage.
Right. So under the old passive way, you might just mentally note it. Under the step 3 discipline, you pause if you can, or make a quick note, and later you open your speaking notebook to the environment section.
Got it. Find the right topic file.
And here's the crucial part. You don't just write irreversible damage, damage that cannot be fixed. That's still too passive.
So what do?
You immediately integrate it into a new prefabricated sentence or add it to an existing one. You give it context, structure, and a topical home right away.
So I might write something like, deforestation in that region is causing irreversible damage to biodiversity. Or maybe, we need stricter regulations to prevent irreversible damage to the ecosystem.
Exactly. You immediately put it to work in a sentence structure you might actually use. You've connected it to the topic, environment, and given it a grammatical context. You're practicing its use, not just memorizing its definition.
You're essentially creating that instant pathway, moving it from the I recognize this word library to the I can retrieve and use this word library.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. From the passive reading listening library to the active speaking production library. The source material also briefly referenced the importance of active vocabulary and linked it to effective note-taking methods, likely covered in previous content they produced. This systematic logging is the key mechanism.
Why is filing it under the topic so critical again? Why not just keep a running list of new cool phrases?
Because a running list is still too much like that unsorted database we talked about. When you're talking about the environment, you need your brain to access environment-related language quickly. If irreversible damage is buried in a chronological list between a slang term about dating and a business idiom, it's much harder to find under pressure.
Right. But if it's filed neatly under environment, the moment the conversation turns to climate change or pollution, your mind knows exactly which drawer to open in that mental filing cabinet.
That's the logic. The topical filing ensures the language is stored precisely where it's most likely to be needed, making retrieval faster and more reliable during actual speech.
So step 3 is really about cultivating a habit, a discipline of constant capture and integration. It's about turning passive encounters with new language into active fuel for your speaking engine.
Well said. It ensures your speaking inventory doesn't just get created, step 2, but actually grows, stays relevant, and becomes increasingly sophisticated over time. You're constantly feeding your automatic speaking system with new, high-quality, contextually relevant material.
Okay, we've got the system architecture. Step 1, topics. We've built the initial content. Step 2, prefabricated sentences. We're keeping it updated and growing. Step 3, active integration. This all sounds incredibly logical, very systematic, but something feels missing.
You're anticipating the final and arguably most crucial piece of the puzzle.
All this organization, all this preparation, it's still theoretical until you actually do it.
Exactly. All the best preparation in the world is useless if it stays locked in the notebook. This brings us to the absolute linchpin. Step 4, the absolute necessity of practice.
Step 4, practice. Okay, this seems obvious, but the source puts a huge emphasis on it, suggesting maybe it's where most learners fall down, even if they do the other steps.
Absolutely. It's non-negotiable. All that theoretical knowledge, the grammar rules you studied for years, the vocabulary lists, even the beautifully crafted prefabricated sentences from step 2, it's all essentially inert. Potential energy, not kinetic energy.
Until you try to use it out loud.
until you force your brain and your mouth to actually produce it. The source material drives this point home really powerfully, using an analogy we touched on briefly, but it deserves a much closer look. The analogy of learning to drive a car.
Right, the driving analogy. Let's spend some real time unpacking this, because I agree, it perfectly captures why just knowing English isn't enough to speak English.
Okay. Imagine someone learning to drive. They read the entire driver's manual cover to cover. They can ace the written test. They know theoretically how to turn the key, what the gas pedal does, where the brake is, the principle of mirrors, signaling, changing gears.
They understand the mechanics. They know the rules of the road. That's like the grammar and vocabulary knowledge.
Precisely. That's the passive understanding. They know how a car works. But does that knowledge in itself make them a competent driver?
Not a chance. The first time they actually get behind the wheel, especially with a manual transmission.
No, yeah, the dreaded stick shift.
It's chaos. They have to manage the clutch, give it the right amount of gas, shift the gear at the right time, steer, check the mirrors, watch the road, be aware of other cars, all simultaneously.
It's an overwhelming cascade of tasks that need to happen in coordination and in real time. Their brain, trying to consciously process each step. Okay, clutch in, now shift, ease off clutch, add gas. It just gets overloaded. They stall the engine, jerk the car.
It's clumsy, stressful, and requires intense concentration just to move a few feet without messing up.
And the source argues that the initial difficulty in speaking a foreign language fluently is identical to that feeling. The learner is trying to consciously manage multiple systems at once. Select the correct verb tense, like working the clutch, retrieve the right topic-specific vocabulary, finding the gas pedal, apply the correct sentence structure, steering, maybe even monitor the listener's reaction, checking mirrors.
It's complete cognitive overload. The system wasn't designed for that much conscious, real-time processing.
Exactly. And the driving analogy holds the key to the solution too, doesn't it? How does someone actually become a good driver?
They have to drive. A lot. They have to get in the car day after day and practice. Put in the hours behind the wheel.
Right. And what happens over those hours of practice?
Well, eventually. Operating the controls stops being this series of slow, deliberate, conscious decisions. It becomes automatic. Your feet just know what to do with the pedals. Your hand finds the gear shift without thinking. You check your mirrors instinctively.
The actions shift from conscious analytical tasks to subconscious procedural skills. Muscle memory takes over for the mechanics, freeing up your conscious mind to focus on the important things, like navigating traffic, anticipating hazards, enjoying the drive.
Okay, the analogy is crystal clear now.
The conclusion for language learning is inescapable then. The same applies directly to speaking English. Knowing all the grammar rules and having a huge vocabulary means almost nothing for fluency without sufficient practice. The more hours you actually spend speaking, forcing your brain to retrieve and assemble language in real time, the more automatic and effortless it will become.
You have to put in the driving hours for speaking.
You absolutely do. Which naturally brings us to the biggest practical hurdle most self-learners face. They say, okay, I get it, I need to practice, but I'm learning alone. Who am I supposed to talk to? I don't live in an English-speaking country, or I don't have native speaker friends readily available.
The no practice partner dilemma. It's a very real obstacle for many.
It is. But the solution offered by the source is incredibly empowering because it removes that dependency entirely. The answer is simple. Talk to yourself.
Just talk to yourself out loud.
Out loud. You don't need a partner. You don't need an audience. The only requirement is the act of verbalizing the language, forcing your brain to go through the process of retrieving those prefabricated sentences and grammatical structures and actually articulating them. The physical act of speaking matters.
Okay, but how do you do that without feeling, well, a bit strange? And what do you even talk about?
The source gives several practical scenarios. It's about leveraging moments you already have in your day. You can practice in front of the mirror. Stand there and imagine you're explaining something, maybe summarizing an article you read, or giving a short presentation on your work.
Okay, using the mirror gives some sense of an audience, maybe?
Or talk to yourself while you're doing chores, like washing dishes or folding laundry. Describe what you're doing. Narrate your actions. Okay, now I'm putting the plates in the dishwasher. It sounds simple, but you're using verbs, nouns, present continuous tense.
You're activating the language circuits.
Exactly. Or while walking or commuting. Describe the people you see, the buildings, the weather. That man is walking his dog. The dog looks like a terrier. It's starting to rain. Force your brain to find the descriptive words, the right tenses.
Using the world around you as a prompt.
Yes. Or you could do it while waiting for the bus, or even lying in bed before sleep. Run through an imagined dialogue in your head, but then try to say your parts out loud, even quietly. Maybe imagine you're at a job interview or meeting someone new at a party. How would you answer common questions using the language you've prepared in your notebook?
So instead of just mentally reviewing, say, my work career sentences, I'd actually try to say them out loud in response to an imagined question like, tell me about your responsibilities.
Precisely. You try to articulate, well, in my current role, I'm responsible for managing client accounts, and I also oversee the junior team members. One of the main challenges is you force yourself to retrieve and speak those prefabricated chunks.
And this is where the system starts to really show its value, isn't it? The source talked about self-correction happening during the solo practice.
Yes, this is fascinating. Because you've done step 2, prefabricating good sentences, your brain now has a target for what good English sounds like on that topic. So when you're talking to yourself, you might start to say something basic.
Like going back to the friends example, I might start saying, I don't have.
And then, because you've practiced, I have a small circle of close friends, in your notebook, your internal monitor flags the basic version. You might catch yourself mid-thought or mid-sentence and self-correct. Actually, let me rephrase. I have a small circle of friends.
Oh, yeah.
Small circle of close friends because I'm not really an extrovert.
Wow. So the system you build in the notebook becomes your internal quality control.
In a way, yes. That internal refinement, that spontaneous upgrade from a basic sentence to the more sophisticated one you prepared, that is the procedural memory being built and strengthened. You're not waiting for an external teacher to correct you. Your own preparation is enabling you to monitor and improve your output in real time.
Okay, but that leads to the final nagging doubt. If I'm practicing alone and I don't catch my mistakes, if I say something grammatically wrong or use a word slightly incorrectly, aren't I just reinforcing bad habits? There's no one there to tell me I'm wrong.
This is a huge fear and a valid concern for learners. The source addresses it directly.
What's the tape?
The perspective offered is actually quite liberating. During the solo practice phase, the primary goal isn't 100% accuracy or perfection. The primary goal is effort, retrieval, and building fluency, reducing that gap between thought and speech.
So focus on getting the words out, even if they're not perfect.
Focus on the effort of trying to communicate your thoughts, using the structures you've prepared. Focus on building the speed and automaticity. You are training the speaking muscle, making the retrieval process faster and less effortful. The perfection comes later, through a different mechanism.
Which is the alert mind.
Exactly. The source calls it developing an alert mind. Here's how it works. You spend hours practicing talking to yourself, maybe struggling sometimes with, say, the difference between present perfect simple and continuous when talking about your job experience. You try to use it, maybe you get it wrong sometimes, maybe right sometimes.
Okay.
Then later, when you're doing some focused study, perhaps reviewing that specific grammar point in a book or online, your mind is now primed. It's not just abstract theory anymore. You have concrete experience of trying and possibly failing to use that structure in your self-talk.
So when you read the rule explanation,
it clicks. Your brain goes, aha, that's why I was struggling. I've been using for when I should have used since here, or, oh, I wasn't using the ing form correctly when I talk about ongoing projects. That moment of self-realization, connecting the formal rule to your own remembered speaking attempts and errors, is incredibly powerful.
much more powerful than just having a teacher circle an error on a page.
Exponentially more powerful, the source suggests, because you recognize the gap between your performance and the correct form based on your own active effort. Your mind was made alert to the issue through your practice.
So the advice is, don't obsess about making mistakes during self-talk. Focus on the doing, the effort. Trust that the correction mechanism will kick in later when you combine practice with focused study.
Precisely. It requires patience. This is the patience paradox the source implicitly highlights. You have to be patient enough to allow yourself to sound clumsy, hesitant, or even incorrect during your practice sessions.
Knowing that clumsiness is actually the necessary training ground.
It's the reps you need to build the muscle. Trust the four-step process. Organize topically, prefabricate sentences, integrate actively, and practice consistently by talking to yourself. The fluency, the reduced gap, the greater automaticity will follow that sustained, systematic effort.
That is a really comprehensive and frankly hopeful framework. It takes the mystery out of it and provides concrete actions. Let's quickly recap those 4 pillars for everyone listening, just to really nail them down.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's consolidate the core actions. Pillar 1, Organize by topic. Ditch the random learning. Get that speaking notebook physical or digital and create sections for real-world conversation topics. File everything you learn under its relevant theme.
Pillar 2. Write prefabricated sentences first. Use your quiet study time to do the heavy lifting. Go into your topic sections and consciously write out complex, natural-sounding sentences. Use tools like asdeck.com to find those common collocations and idiomatic phrases that native speakers use. Build your ready-to-use structural units.
Pillar 3. Integrate every new word actively. Cultivate the discipline. Every time you encounter a useful new word or phrase, don't just note it immediately, integrate it into a sentence within the correct topic section of your notebook. Turn that passive recognition into an active, usable asset.
And the crucial final step, Pillar 4. Practice, practice, practice. Talk to yourself. Remember the driving analogy. Theory isn't enough. You have to get behind the wheel and speak. Use downtime, use the mirror, use your walks. Describe, explain, narrate. Force your brain to retrieve and articulate the language. Embrace the effort over perfection.
And the source leaves us with the final thought of what we're actually aiming for. Fluency, it suggests, isn't really about achieving zero mistakes ever. Native speakers make slips all the time.
True.
Real fluency is about speed. It's about minimizing that frustrating gap between the complex thought you have in your head. I want to explain the nuances of my job satisfaction and the moment the words actually come out of your mouth smoothly and effectively.
And this whole 4-step system, the organization, the prefabrication, the integration, the self-talk practice, it's all laser-focused on systematically shrinking that gap.
Directly targeting that delay, making the connection between thought and utterance faster and more automatic.
So the challenge to you listening right now is not just to think, that sounds interesting. It's to take action. Start today. Open a notebook, open a document. Pick just one topic section you know you need. Maybe it's work, maybe it's hobbies, maybe it's current events. Find one useful tool like ASDEC. Find some relevant language and write down just 5 or 10 prefabricated sentences using this method. Start building that active inventory now. Don't wait.